To another live. I'm so excited to be here with Julia. Welcome, Julia, to my channel officially. I feel like we've known each other for a while. We've never
I
actually met,
know,
but
it's weird. We're just chatting away as if we've known each other forever. It's funny.
I know, it's so funny. So I really am excited to talk to you because I think you're in a space and in an industry that not a lot of people would think could blow up on YouTube. So how did this therapist go from unknown to now having over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and generating over $100,000 a year in revenue? That's what we're going to dive into today. And I know that your journey started around the time that you invested in YouTube for Bosses, which is really exciting for me. And honestly, I said to you kind of offline, but this is why I do what I do. I could cry at the fact that I have given you a tool or given you resources to be able to spread your impact and spread your message and create these ripples and this ripple effect of really important information about everything from anxiety to mindset to personal development to self-love to like figuring out your relationships, these topics that are so important and you're a genius at. And I've in some way, shape, or form helped you get your message out into the world. So I just want to say kudos to you and congratulations on that because what you're doing is amazing and important. But let's kind of start back at the beginning because if you don't know, I mean, Julia's channel today looks like this. So you are now at 114,000, which is incredible. So congrats. But where did you start? Where were you 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, you know what, honestly, I had probably just like over 1,000 subscribers, but it was totally by accident. I'd put out maybe half a dozen videos over the course of like a year, but I was just kind of threw some content out there, for a few different reasons, partly to build up the SEO on my website, to have some video content, some generating new content to put on my website to boost that up for people to be able to find me as a private practice therapist. And then partly just to really be getting clear on what I did know, because I think for so many of us who have been doing something for a long time, we don't really realize how much we actually know. So being able to put that content together, being able to put that information together and speak it, then we're like, oh wow, okay, I guess I kind of do know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And the other thing too was to just be able to give a free resource to people. So I know not everyone can afford to go to see a therapist or a coach or whatever, but just being able to have that free resource for people to just get some help for free. And so those were kind of the reasons I did it. Put a little bit out there, but didn't really ever take it too seriously. It was like, oh yeah, when I have time, I'll maybe put together something, or when I come across an article that I find kind of interesting, that I have some thoughts about, or when I kind of learn something, then I'm like, oh yeah, I want to put this together in my own way and share that. But it was nothing formal, no strategy, no plan, just kind of like, put it out there and whatever. Like it wasn't even like the spray and pray. It wasn't even like I'm just going to put the information out there and hope that something works. It was just like there was no plan. It was just put the information out there and that's it. That's it.
And that's it. And so when you started to see a little bit of growth, I mean, I just think it's really interesting, and I'm sure that there's people here who can relate, where they're like, I didn't even think of YouTube as a strategy, and that's not something. And I guess the thing for me is like, how different do you think things would be if you, one, hadn't have started, but two, hadn't enrolled in YouTube for Bosses? Like, what do you think would be happening in your business?
Oh my God, I don't even want to think about it, Sunny. Like, I don't even want to think about it, because like it was when I saw a couple of my videos had taken off and were really connecting with people. And I'm like, oh, like this is information that people want. This is stuff that's useful. And then I don't even know how the stars aligned and I came across your path. But then I started watching you, and like you were talking about like being more strategic and more intentional and more committed and taking this YouTube thing seriously. It's like, it's a legit thing. And so I was like, all right, well, why don't I just start putting out videos more regularly? Just start taking this a little bit more seriously, just start being more intentional about it. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. And I'm going to spend the next however long, I think I said, I'll spend the next few months being consistent, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if anything happens. And then it did. Like it started happening, and it started growing, and things started connecting, and the content was, it was catching on. And so then it just kind of snowballed from there. And it wasn't this like snowball, where some people are just like, yeah, like I, worked at something for like a month and all of a sudden, everything in my life just completely transformed and, my life just blew up and my business blew up. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But it was like this slow and steady progression, but there was progression and enough progression to be like, oh, like there's something here. There's something going on here. And so then, I could talk for hours about what has happened and how that's changed and how that's impacted things and like what that's done for my life and for my business. But that's just sort of the start of it. It just started there. It started with being able to say, you know what, like I am going to take this seriously because I think so many people, they dabble, right? It's like you have an idea of sort of where you want to get to in life and what you want to be doing. And it's like this like destination island or whatever. And then you start building bridges and you do a little bit here. And then that doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot. So then you start doing a little bit here. And then, something else seems kind of interesting. So then you start going over here. And then someone else is doing something that looks kind of cool. So you're like, maybe I should try that. And then you start going over here. And so you're putting in all of this effort into building these little partial bridges. And then you're like, how come I'm not getting anywhere? How come I'm not actually getting any closer to what I want and where I want? And I'm putting in all this effort. And it's not because you're doing, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're getting distracted along the way because you think that what you're doing isn't right, but you just haven't shown up enough. You haven't put in enough. You haven't gotten there yet. You haven't invested enough into that one bridge. So keeping focused on that one bridge. And I was like, I'm going to focus on the YouTube bridge and I'm going to give it some good effort. It's not like I'm going to put up 3 videos and if none of them go viral, then I'm out. Right?
Yes, exactly. Completely. And I think you nailed it on the head right there. And I often say this, and I'm sure I sound like a broken record, but once you decide to double down on one thing, that's when momentum starts to build. And the fact that you were like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. And I often say this too, when people pay, they pay attention. My biggest breakthroughs, my biggest growth in my business, in my brand, in everything has come from investing in myself and investing in the right programs and the right strategies and the right mentors. So I think that is I call it a TSN turning point because it really is a TSN turning point of like when things start to really pick up steam and momentum. I guess for you, when you started, because I know you were kind of like you said, and it's funny, everybody uses this term. They'll be like, yeah, I was just throwing up some content here and there. And I love when people say that because I'm like, that's literally what you're doing. You're basically just like vomiting content onto your channel and hoping that it sticks. And that strategy is tough to grow with. And so when you started diving into YouTube and when you started YouTube for Bosses, what were the big light bulb moments for you when you were like, oh, I can see how this is going to work? And what pieces of the strategy did you feel really changed the game for you?
Yeah, so really that whole thing around like posting on different platforms and sort of making them all super connected and really just like letting one feed off of the other. And so then they've all kind of grown together. And so being able to do that. And, I think for a lot of us, I'm a content creator, I always have an idea. I'm always thinking about something. But I think we're not always as smart as we could be because like these brains that we have, like they're working hard for us, but we don't actually get the most out of them that we could because we'll just put a piece of content out there and then we'll go on to the next thing. And that's what I was doing a lot of, where I wasn't actually being intentional about anything. So I was putting all of this work into creating content, but not being smart about it, not making it like getting the mileage out of it that I could have. And that's so much of what you teach in YouTube for Bosses. Like, how do you get the most mileage out of your brilliant brain? And being able to just say, like, instead of just putting a video up, like sharing it over here on your Facebook page or on your Instagram or on LinkedIn or on Twitter or wherever it is that you are. And how do you kind of create these little video clips or these little quotes, like pulling quotes from your videos, directing people there, directing people from YouTube over here, directing people over here back to YouTube, and just really being able to pull pieces out and being able, pulling pieces out of what you say and turning it into a quote and putting it on Instagram or Twitter, or, having a little clip from your video, putting it on your Facebook page, and then, with a link back to your YouTube. So just really being smart about stuff instead of just, right? Like it's so, I think for a lot of us who are creatives, our content comes easily, or like we always have ideas, but are we actually like, are we just like running on the treadmill and just trying to keep going? Or are we actually being smart about it? Are we actually, like playing the long game instead of just sprinting until we collapse.
Totally, and that's something that I often say. It can feel, especially when you're starting your business, and we were talking about this. You've been doing this for 3 years now, and you're like, it's taken 3 solid years of like that groundwork to get there. And I call it like the treadmill business model versus the bulletproof business model. The treadmill business model is you're just constantly running but moving nowhere, and constantly trying all these different things and going at full sprint, and you'll get a little win and then you can breathe and then you have to sprint again, versus the bulletproof, which is like you've got leads coming in from a bunch of different sources, you have customers, you have an audience building on autopilot, which is what is really the beautiful thing about YouTube. So if you guys want to get started with YouTube for Bosses, I put some training on the screen. It's called bossyoutubestrategy.com. You can go there and sign up, and it's our free training on this exact strategy that helped Julia go from unknown to over 100,000 subscribers. Just amazing. And over $100,000 in revenue in her business in the last year, which you're on track to double, which I'm really amazed and proud of you for. And I know you don't like talking about money, so I appreciate that you're sharing that info. But I think it's really important for people to see the possibility, because oftentimes people are talking about other ways to make money on YouTube, which are a lot smaller than what you're talking about. And that's really what I try and drill home, is that you have programs, you have offerings, you have things that you're driving your YouTube traffic to, and it's generating over $100,000 a year, which is just incredible. And it's your own, which is what I love. So I wanted to touch on something that I think every single person watching right now can probably relate to. You mentioned that when you first were getting started, perfectionism really held you back, and wanting to be like the stereotypical therapist, which I don't even know what that means, but you probably have a thought process in your head of like, okay, I need to be prim and proper, I need to be this and that. And I think everyone, when you start putting yourself out there, you think you have to act a certain way or look a certain way or be a certain way in order to succeed. So let's talk about your journey with that, because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, I think we need to do things backwards, because so many of us, we keep ourselves stuck. Like, perfectionism is real for so many of us. If you are like, I want to do this, or I think this would be really cool, but I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I haven't polished this enough, I'm not comfortable in front of the camera, I'm not really good speaking. And so we do that. We make up all of these excuses. It's all fear, right? Like, all it is fear, because we're making it mean something. We're making showing up on camera mean something about us. And if we don't do it perfectly, well, then what does that say about us? If we're not good enough the first time we show up. And I remember someone telling me this, where they're like, your first 50 videos are gonna suck. So just get them out of the way so you can start being great, instead of waiting and expecting yourself to be great from the first time you get on there. Like, stop it. Let yourself be a human being. Let yourself be messy. Let yourself just sort of put it out there, and then polish up the edges as you're going. Because so many of us, we stop and we're like, ugh, like, what are people going to think about me? Or what are people going to say about me if they see me as imperfect? Spoiler alert. Everyone is imperfect. And just the fact that you're putting yourself out there shows that you are a whole lot more brave than the other people who are sitting on the sidelines with their excuses about why they can't show up. And it's actually kind of interesting, because this woman, what did she say to me? I had this woman on one of my comments say something to me like, oh, she said, sometimes you repeat yourself when you're talking. So I'm just wondering if you could be a little bit more succinct. And I was like, and I usually don't pay attention to comments like that, because I'm just like, you're welcome.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah.
You're welcome for the stuff that people literally pay thousands of dollars to be able to work with someone over long term to learn this stuff, to be taught this stuff. But I just wrote back to her, and I was like, hey, like, part of my journey has been about letting myself not be perfect. And I do know that I sometimes repeat myself, and it's something that I'm working on. So, thanks for your feedback. But I'm letting myself be imperfect, and I'm letting myself grow. And it's funny, because I mentioned this, and I was talking about this with one of my coaching groups, and talking about letting ourselves be imperfect and knowing that someone's going to have a problem with it. Someone's going to say something about it. But what are you going to make it mean? And it was interesting, because all the people in my coaching group were people that had found me on YouTube, and they were like, oh, I love that you repeat yourself, because it really helps to kind of drive home the point, because you say things in a different way a couple times, that it really just makes it connect and makes it make more sense. So, case in point, someone is always gonna have something bad to say about you, and you always have room to grow. So let both of them happen. Let people have their opinions, let people have their perspectives, and let yourself grow. Let yourself put yourself out there. Let yourself suck. Like, come on, let yourself suck. We all sucked. You sucked. Did you suck when you first started?
I absolutely sucked when I first started. Right? And the best part was, I think it's a combination of two things. I think it's a combination of I had blind confidence. I had blind confidence. Don't know where it came from, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this and not care. And so I was like, it's good. And I think that's the thing. So looking back, and hindsight's 2020, I look back at my first couple of videos, I was like, oh God. But you know what? They weren't a failure. They were still good because people got something from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good aspect to touch on, in the sense that I want to say Chris just signed up for the masterclass. So welcome, Chris. I'm excited to see you there. But I wanted to say one of the things that I think is so important to drive home here is that you have grown to over 100,000 subscribers on your channel. I have grown to almost 300,000 subscribers on my channel. I have stayed with pretty much the same strategy and formula, which is the methodology that we teach from day one. I am not trying to do viral videos. I'm trying to add value. Instead of viral videos, we have value videos. And the value videos can go viral, and they very much so have. I have videos with 1 million views. You have videos with like 800,000 views on them. That's 800,000 people who have watched that video because it meant something to them and it impacted them. So I always say to clients, to students who are like, my audio's not that good, or the video doesn't look that great, it doesn't matter. What matters is how much are you able to impact the person who's watching this video. Whether it's one person or 1 million people, if you can impact the person who's watching the video, and that's all you should be thinking about when you film these videos. And I think that's where my blind confidence came from. We're having a preach moment. Yes. I think that's where my blind confidence came from, because when I filmed my first video, and a lot of people know this story, when I started really getting consistent on YouTube, it was about how to use Periscope. The only reason I made it was because all my clients at the time were trying to figure out how to use it for their business. And I couldn't get to another meeting. I didn't have time to get on the phone. And I was like, okay, how do I basically clone myself? So I was like, I'm going to film a video, put it on my YouTube channel, which was non-existent, send it to my clients. That's how I did it. And my only thought process as I was filming this video was, I need them to understand this concept because I can't get on the phone again. I need them to understand the step-by-step strategy, and I need to make sure that this gives them the whole answer. And so I did that, and the intent was to help these clients. But in doing that, I helped close to 100,000 people who watch that video now around the world, because my goal with it was to provide the best value out there. And so people will talk about like free content versus paid content, how much you give away in free content. I maybe have a different school of thought. I know you have this school of thought too, and it's something that I talk about often with my clients. I say give away the farm, because if you're giving away everything, people are going to come back to you. It creates a sense of reciprocity and loyalty, meaning that if you give, people will give back to you. And it's just the law of the world. And so the more that I give, the more generous I am, the more people want to come work with me. So let's just put it this way. Let's say you have a business where let's say you're a plumber, random example, and you want to go on YouTube and you do a video on how to fix a toilet, but you only give people the first 2 steps in how to fix a toilet, and then you're like, call me to figure out the rest and pay me. No one's going to pay you because you didn't give them what they're looking for. You know who's going to pay you? The person who gets the answer, and they're like, well, that was really freaking helpful, and I definitely don't want to do that myself, so I'm going to go to them because they're clearly the expert, because they just taught me how to do it. So that's my thought process on content, and I believe that's also a big part of the reason that you've been so successful, because you do give away the farm. And do you have anything to add on that front, the free versus paid situation?
Yeah, oh my gosh, I have so much to say about what you just said. But like going back, just a second, we'll go back and we'll go forward. But going back to what were you saying about just showing up on camera and adding value, and not trying to like explode on YouTube, not trying to create this viral stuff. Like it's none of your business who's going to be helped from your content.
Yes.
What you need to do it's actually not even really in your business how your content is going to be received.
Yeah.
What is your business is showing up and giving value and being authentic and like showing up with like the purity inside. You're like, I am coming to help another human being. I am coming to make a difference in somebody else's life. And if you are going to do that, then you don't have to be perfect. And like exactly what you said, one of my first videos, it was like one of my first 10 videos is the one that has what, like over 800,000 views now. I can't even watch it. I cannot watch it because it was one of my ones where I was trying to be this super friendly, super warm, super nice therapist and like be all proper and everything. But it's been one of my most successful videos. And it came because, and it's called Love Someone Who Has Depression. Here's what you need to know. Mm-hmm. It's because I was working with a lot of clients who were struggling with depression and feeling like they didn't know how to get their family members to understand, or they didn't know how to get their friends to understand what was going on. And so they were, oftentimes like avoiding people and closing themselves off because they didn't want to be the Debbie Downer. They didn't want to bring everyone else, down, and they didn't have a lot to offer, but they still wanted people to understand what was going on with them. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a video just to put this information out there so people really understand a lot more what's going on. And that was my only intention. And I think I can't watch myself, but because I'm so annoying. I think I am so annoying in that video. But I'm like, it's none of my business. It is none of my business what the impact is going to be on somebody else. What is my business is being like authentic and intentional and pure with how I am showing up. And that's the same thing. Like I think you and I, Sunny, we share so much of the same philosophy around that. Is like not trying to be so strategic all the time, not trying to figure out like how am I going to get people, how am I going to give people a little bit of information so that they have to pay me for the rest of it, instead of just being like, I give away the farm. I tell people, I talk about the same things on my YouTube videos that I talk about in sessions with clients. I will oftentimes finish a session with a client and be like madly writing things down because I'm like, more people need to have this information, right?
Can I stop you there for 1 second? Because that's such a good tip. If you are watching this and you're struggling with content ideas and you are a business owner or an entrepreneur of any kind, that tip right there is golden. So I too, when I finish working with my consulting clients in our Authority Accelerator program, I will hop off the call and I'm like, Kate, they just asked me about X, Y, and Z. I need to make a video on this and this and this. And so your paid clients will inform your free content, because if your paid clients are asking those questions, there's about 1 million other people out there who are asking those questions and need to find you and need your help. So it's just an easy hack to figure out what kind of content you want to create.
Totally.
And I wanted to just mention this really quickly. A couple people are asking, how do we sign up for the free masterclass? You can go to bossyoutubestrategy.com. It's on the screen right there. And let me know if you guys can see it or can't see it. But that's where you can sign up for the masterclass. And that's really what will get you started in creating a strategy that will create videos that make a real impact like your videos are making. I love that you kind of are on that same tangent as me on giving away the farm, because it feels counterintuitive. It feels like if I'm giving away all my information for free, why would anyone want to work or pay for anything? But I mean, I'm living proof that I have basically given it all away, and people want to work with me, and I've been able to build a multi-million-dollar business because I've been generous. And I think that's the new school way of thinking about business. The more generous you are, the more abundance you're going to create. And the reality is too, you can go and watch a YouTube video, but again, those who pay attention. So you could go and watch a couple of YouTube videos of mine, but I highly doubt you're like in it and you're really focused and you're really actually taking notes and doing all the things. Also, I can't put an entire program, nor can you, into one video. I have to like break everything up, and I'm not going to be able to touch on every single little thing. And so I often say when it comes to free versus paid content, it's like you give the what inside of the free content, but you give the how inside of the paid content. Yeah. And that's why courses are a lot longer and more robust and give you every single nitty gritty little detail in order to do it. Well,
I think even more so than that too, Sunny, is that like we want to be a part of something. Right? Like people don't just want information, they want to be a part of something. So usually when you're doing a program, you're part of like some kind of community, you're part of some Facebook group, you're like you've got the inside track. There's other people that you get to connect with and you get to build those relationships and you get to kind of have that. And I think that that's so much more, especially in this day and age where we're so disconnected in real life, that we want to have those real connections with other people. And so and so many of the online courses and programs nowadays, it's not just about like, oh, here's the program for you to just do on your own. Here's the program, but then here's the community that you get to be a part of with other like-minded people that you can go to when you have questions. So you're not just like holed away in your living room in front of your computer trying to figure this all out by yourself. When you run into a problem, you have someone to go to, you have someone to keep you accountable. You're getting someone like there with you on your journey. So not just the leader, but also, the other people who are in the process with you as well, because it's lonely. Like in our world now, it gets lonely. We are so disconnected. And so this gives us an opportunity to be connected to other human beings again, and to not feel so alone. And I think that that's huge. I think that that's huge.
Especially as someone who is in the mental health field, like I'm sure that you're seeing even more now that the ramifications of social media actually making people antisocial, and the value of finding people that you can relate to and connect with, which is also a really beautiful thing about YouTube, is that people feel like they know you. And that creates this sense of, you're the person I want to go to because I feel like that you know me and you've helped me. And I've been watching you for however many years. And one of the things that's really amazing about what you've done is we talked about revenue-wise, you've been able to grow to over $100,000 a year in your business directly from YouTube. But you've also just seen like other spurts of really amazing things happen because you've grown this big audience. And I think this is something people often forget about, but when people know about you, they can work with you. And when people know about you, they can present you with opportunities. So for me, within a month of being on YouTube, I got asked to speak at NATO's headquarters because someone found me the head of social media for NATO found me on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I watched your video on YouTube. You want to come speak at this conference? Crazy. For you, you've been asked to be a speaker. You're seen as an expert in your field. Talk about those kind of like byproducts, I guess, of building a big audience on YouTube.
That's been the best, because that's what I love, is being able to have these kinds of conversations. So being invited to be on podcasts with people, being asked to be like guest speakers in different people's programs and courses. Same thing. I got contacted last summer about speaking at this event in DC. So there's this big national conference happening in DC at the end of the month. And this woman contacted me and she's like, I want to pay you a lot of money and fly you out here and put you up and have you come and do a 90-minute workshop for the people at this conference because I love your content. And it was just so random. And so going to do that at the end of the month, like that's one of my biggest loves, is being able to teach and speak, and especially being able to do it live for me personally, because I love like seeing in person the light bulbs go on and the connection happening and like people like nodding their heads and they're like, oh my gosh, I get it. And so many things make sense now. And this is so much more clear. And, watching people get unstuck for me, is there anything, like I know you know that too, is there anything more rewarding that fills your soul more than being able to like watch people just like open up their eyes?
It's what I live for.
Whole new world.
I live for light bulb moments. That's what I always say. I live for light bulb moments. And I live for those turning points. And like I was saying, I mean, it's really cool right now because I'm seeing, I think Apollonia is here, and I've got a few other clients who are watching, and it's just really amazing. And I said this earlier, but I live for other people's success, and I live for being a vehicle for other people's success. So the fact that I created this program, YouTube for Bosses, and it's now been in the hands of over 3,000 people. And I'm able to see these little ripples starting of people like you, of people like Apollonia, who have taken the program and just blown up and skyrocketed because of it. And you're able to then go share your genius in such a big way. You're speaking on stages. You're talking to hundreds of thousands of people online. You're working with people in your programs, and you're making a real impact in their lives. And like, that really for me is what I do this all for and what it's all about. And I just think it's such an amazing aspect of the way that we are living in the world right now in online business. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And you don't know, like I don't ever promote my private practice on my YouTube videos because my practice, which is kind of funny because I've never intentionally done that. But because of that, because of YouTube, it's really raised my profile, and people find me. I'm like on the first page of Google for counselors in Vancouver without paying a penny. I've never paid a penny for advertising. And, so my private practice, so we've done over like 6 figures just with my courses and programs online, but then we've done well over that in my private practice. in the last year, like just because my calendar's full and I have like a 2-month long wait list. And so it's kind of like the sky is the limit, and you don't always know how it's going to take off. You don't always know what's going to happen. And the same thing too, because of YouTube for Bosses, I did a launch back in February, and I didn't spend a penny on advertising. And we did over $30,000 in that launch. And that's all just because of people, because of people that came to me from YouTube and getting them on my email list. It was just all email. And because people have that relationship with you, you have that connection, and you've built that trust. Like, people trust me. My people trust me because exactly like you said, I'm not holding anything back, because I'm giving it all to them, because I'm sharing this stuff with them, and then they trust you, and then they want to go deeper. And so it's like, hey, if you want to go deeper, then here it is. And the same thing for you with YouTube for Bosses. You're like, here's all the free stuff. This is crazy valuable. And now if you want to go deeper, and if you want to have it kind of all organized, if you want to know the step-by-step process, I can walk you through it. And here it is right here. And it's like all there for you, and you get to kind of just play with it and do it and learn from it and grow with it and watch everything in your life change from it. So,
and I think also it informs so much. I know for me, and people are asking where the link is to the masterclass. You can see it on the screen. Can you guys let me know if you can see that link on the screen? It's bossyoutubestrategy.com, and that will give you a little sneak preview or snippet and some training on what is inside of YouTube for Bosses, which is the program that Julia took. So welcome to the people who have signed up. But I think the free content has informed so much of what I've created. I would have never created YouTube for Bosses if I hadn't started on YouTube creating videos and experimenting and seeing what my audience actually wanted to know from me and what they saw me as an expert in. Because at the beginning, I was a consultant for 4 years, didn't do anything online, and started making tutorials for my clients. And then all of a sudden I noticed that my YouTube specific topics were really blowing up, and I was like, okay, I should make something about video. That then slowly iterated into YouTube for Bosses, and that's the program that like blew up for me. But without doing free content and testing the waters, I don't know if I would have known what I should be included. Even today, same thing. I'll look at comments, I look at feedback from my free content, and I'm like, oh, I should include that in my programs to make them the best in the world. And do you find that as well? Do you find that your free content is always informing your paid programs and products that you have online?
it's kind of this back and forth. Whereas like my free content will inform things in my paid content, but then also in my paid content, when I'm working more up close and personally with people, that will inform what I'm going to do in my free content. So It just sort of bounces back, and it just becomes this like thing that's bigger than the sum of its parts.
Totally.
Yeah. And like exactly like you said, Sunny, like let yourself experiment with it. Like you didn't have this big plan that I'm going to, put together this huge like step-by-step process, and this is how to do it, because you don't know. It could your idea of what is going to be the thing that you become known for, where your brilliance is not necessarily going to be the thing that people want from you. It's going to be the thing even that you realize that you want from you. And so I think that's such a huge thing for so many people who are sitting on the sidelines and waiting to have it all figured out. Sunny is like the perfect testament to this. I'm a testament to this. Let yourself just experiment. Stop making it mean something. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to have it all figured out. Let yourself get a little messy, get a little dirty, fall down a few times, get yourself back up, and figure out what you want and what you're made of.
Absolutely.
And like that, I think is so huge for so many people. Just let yourself try, let yourself do it, and let yourself figure it out. Like and I use this analogy a lot with clients where they're like, I'm trying to figure out how to get to where I want to go. And they're standing on the sidelines waiting to have the path perfectly laid out. And they're standing there waiting for the path to reveal itself. And they're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. And sometimes they wait for months or years, or they don't even start at all because the path never gets laid out. But what about you just lay down one paving stone? What about you're like, this is what I'm going to do today. This is the one thing I'm going to do today. And then tomorrow I'm going to put down another paving stone. And each paving stone is going to lead to the next paving stone. And maybe it takes a little bit of a curved course. Like maybe it's not this like clear-cut path, but insisting on the clear-cut path is the thing that's keeping you going nowhere, instead of letting yourself just show up and put a paving stone down and trusting that you're either going to figure out where you are going or where you don't want to go, which is going to get more clarity on where you need to be going.
Preach! Oh my gosh, there were so many preach moments in there. And if whether you're listening to this on the podcast or you're watching here with us live, if you're enjoying this content, make sure that you share it out. Tag us both on Instagram and share this link wherever you can, because I think this conversation is really important. And Julie, you just have so much good insight. And I think from your background of being in mental health and well-being, there's so many mindset things that people don't think about when it comes to putting yourself out there and showing up. It takes being brave. It takes having a certain level of blind confidence, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah. And it takes also this growth mindset of you can always be better. You can always do better. And I wanted to talk about you in this example of, I noticed recently, or you told me about this, that you recently did a video that's 25 minutes long, no edits. You just went for it, 25 minutes, and it's really good. And it's on the topic of relationships. And you did this video recently. You've been doing YouTube now for 2 years, but like, talk me through the journey of when you started. You mentioned this earlier. When you started, your videos were not great, in your opinion. And I'm sure you were editing and doing a bunch of different takes. So how do you get from that to 25-minute video, no edits, straight through filming? I don't even do that.
That is rare. That does not always happen, to be honest. Like, that was just like, I've talked about this topic so many times. It's something I talk about always with clients, and it's just like something that I'm super passionate about. And that day the stars aligned and it just all came out. And it just all came out the way it was supposed to. But also too, sometimes I do, like, there's, we all have our off days. I'll have days, because of my schedule, there are days that I have to film my YouTube videos, whether I feel like it or not. So I have all of these strategies and all these tools and all this stuff to get my head in the game and to get my, just everything flowing and everything going. But some days it's not quite as easy, and I am more clunky, and I restart 36 times. Look on my camera and it's like 36 little 3-second videos.
Yeah.
Because I like to kind of get into the flow, and it'll take me a little while to get into the flow. So most of my videos are 2 to 3 pieces put together, where I'll go on a run for like 3 minutes, and then maybe I'll start repeating myself too much and be like, I need to stop and redo that part, or, continue on in this next part. But I think it's when you just let yourself do it, let yourself grow into it. And it's so interesting, because I think, and I don't know if you noticed this too, Sunny, that when you first start out, you kind of suck and it's clunky and it's messy and you're like, and you kind of get in your head about it. But then you finally kind of piece it together and put something together. But then as you keep going, you get better and you refine those skills, like everything. I don't know why we think we should be able to just show up on camera and be amazing speakers first time. It's like, you don't do anything like that and expect it to all just come together. It's a skill. It's something that you have to work on. It's something you have to show up for. It's something you have to invest yourself in, right?
Yes.
And so, right, instead of just expecting ourselves to be perfect right off the bat, which makes no sense, but we all do it. But then I think as you get once you get to a certain level, and you start having that belief in yourself, and you start having that confidence in yourself, then you start letting it be a little more imperfect again, where you're like, it's okay. It actually doesn't have to be perfect. And so I think, we ramp ourselves up to this point where, like, I want to feel like I'm good at a decent level. And then once you're at this decent level, then you're like, now I don't have to be so finicky about it. And it's interesting too, because I think it was my last video that I did talking about perfectionism. And at the end, I really just called it out. And I was like, you guys, thank you for being here, because my videos are not perfect. They're not scripted. I don't have it all planned out. It's not perfectly polished. And and I know that if I insisted on that, I wouldn't do it, because I'd feel way too overwhelmed. It would be too much work, and I actually wouldn't do it. So I think people, want the content more than they want you to be perfect, and they need what you have to say more than they need it to be perfect, polished and put together.
Yes. And I think another thing about your channel that's been really cool to watch is that there is a very sort of cookie cutter way that people think viewers want to consume content on YouTube, and it's like it has to be super choppy, it has to be super fast paced, and it has to be pranks and viral crap and all this stuff, and it isn't true. And I love the fact your videos are black and white. Now I'm going to tell you my interpretation of that. My interpretation of it is that you more so want people to focus on the content than you do what you look like or any sort of bells and whistles, and you want them to leave with the message impacting them. Am I on the right track there?
Totally. Totally.
Awesome. It's a brilliant move.
And you know what? Also, it made it so I didn't have to have perfect lighting every time. I didn't have to have really great lighting because the black and white just sort of corrects it all, and it makes it easy. My video is easy to spot in a lineup. Like
Yes.
part of it is branding as well, where it's like it's really clear who whose videos these are, and so for a lot of different reasons, yeah.
I
Try
love
to
it.
make it easy. And that was my thing. I'm like, this is always my thing. How do I make this as easy as possible? And how do I make this doable? Like people are like, go big or go home. I'm like, no, go moderate and make it doable. Like
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly with
set yourself
that.
up for success instead of perfection.
Well, and I think one of the lines that I often say, because there's so many different ways to approach YouTube, and if you're approaching it as someone who wants to be an entertainer on the space, you can totally do that, and you can use the strategy we lay out. We have a lot of clients who are entertainers and actresses and musicians and all those things. Strategy still works, but I'm a big believer in approaching it as an entrepreneur, and I don't want YouTube to rule my life. I would like to rule YouTube. I don't want to be constantly whipping out my camera and constantly having to film and constantly thinking of content, because as a business owner, I'm sure you can relate, there are about 50 million things you have to juggle on a daily basis. So thinking about what kind of content to create every single day, it doesn't work. It's not
No.
sustainable. So how do you manage that part of it?
Some people love that, right? If that's your thing, if you like want to have videos with crazy edit, like all of these bells and whistles and all that stuff, if you love it, then go for it. And I think that's the secret, is do what makes sense for you. Do what you love. I am not a tech person at all. I don't do any of my tech stuff. I just don't even want to. It makes me uncomfortable, even just the thought of it. But I'm also not willing to spend hundreds of dollars for every single video to have someone go in and do all these fancy edits and this fancy stuff on there. And so I just was like, how do I make this doable, simple and doable, so that I will keep showing up? Because we talked about that consistency and that commitment to it. How am I going to keep myself committed, and how am I going to keep myself consistent? So whatever that looks like for you. And I think that's the most important part, is commitment and consistency.
Yeah.
And however you can make that happen. And again, not getting caught up in this idea of what I should be doing and what it should look like and what it should sound like. And, all of these other things, just letting yourself do what makes sense for you, but just do it. Just do something.
Yeah.
Just show up.
Just show up. And are you a fan of batching your content, or do you do your content like one off?
Yeah, no, I batch, but because my content is pretty, like it requires a lot out of me, because I'm talking about pretty deep things.
Yes.
And because it's unscripted, and I try to just like bring everything that I have for every video, I can only really do about 3 in a day. So I will batch every third Thursday. If you want to know what I'm doing, I am recording 3 videos. And the other thing, Sunny, and people might be surprised to hear this, I know a lot of online people are a little bit more strategic, where they will be more intentional about what they're teaching. If they're leading up to a course or a program that they're getting ready to launch, then they will be a little bit more strategic about what content they're teaching. I try to do that, but also because I'm such an emotional person, I have to feel like talking about what I'm talking about, because again, it's unscripted, and I have a few like bullet point notes, but because it has to just sort of come almost like organically through me, it has to be something that I really feel like talking about. And so I'll have a whole list of different topics and like notes that I've taken and things on just a Google Doc, just a running Google Doc that I have. And I'll go through and I will just pick out like 3 topics that I'm like, yeah, I really feel like talking like that today, or talking about that today. And I'll try to make it, try to be a little bit intentional about creating a bit of a theme around it, if I'm, leading into an upcoming program or something that's coming up. But I don't stress about it too much. And there's always room, like for me, there's so much room for improvement. I could be so much more intentional and plan things and be more strategic about stuff, but I'm not putting all this pressure on myself to do it a certain way. And maybe I'd be making life easier for myself. I would be more successful if I did do it that way. But at this point right now, I've just learned so much about myself in the past few years that pushing something when it doesn't feel right, it doesn't work.
Absolutely. It's that flow state and getting to that. And whatever that means for you, it's totally individual. And
Yeah.
it ebbs and it flows. For me, sometimes in the last 2 months, I've batched 2 months worth of content. in like 2 weeks. But now I'm at a place where I'm like, I kind of want to just do like a couple videos a week and take it a little slower and like be more cognizant of like what's going on my channel. And it just ebbs and flows, but it depends on what's going on in your life, how busy you are, but consistency is key. And that's why for me, I call it the Oprah effect, but it's like making sure that you're showing up at the same time, same place every single week so that you teach your audience when they should be there. And something you mentioned earlier about, it takes practice and allow yourself to grow and allow yourself to suck. I met Oprah. Changed my freaking life. 2 weeks ago, died 1,000 deaths.
I was there. It was an amazing.
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. Like one of the greatest nights of my life. I'm actually going to do a whole video on it because I learned a lot in just that short period of time. But I'm sure you heard her say this. She's done 37,000 interviews. 37,000 interviews. And when she started interviewing people to where she is today, things look very different. And so the people who are the best in the world at what they do, think of pro athletes and how many basketball games LeBron James has played and how many times he's been on the court by himself, early mornings, late nights, practicing. It takes practice. And sometimes it's public practice. Sometimes you put out a video that you're not really ready to put out or you don't feel like is the best, but that's publicly practicing. And the best in the world do that. And they're also doing it behind closed doors. They're doing it behind the scenes. They're working on all the different facets. They're figuring out what their audience wants. It's a lot of practice. And one final thing I wanted to touch on, because I think this is a really important thing for creators to understand and entrepreneurs to understand, something that I've gone through too. Sometimes the things that you do videos on are not necessarily the things that are going to like light up your soul every single time, but they're going to make an impact. So how do you balance between creating content that you want to talk about and creating content that your audience is looking for?
I just do both, right? Like I just really look at, this is not necessarily something I really want to talk about, but I think this is something that people really need and that people actually, maybe even not even that they need, but that they want. And I know that. And so sandwiching the two, letting yourself do the videos that are just like passionate for you. And some of those videos will really take off. And I did one video a little while ago that was probably one of my most like important videos for me. And it did not catch on. Yeah. And I was like, you know what, but that's okay. That was my intention wasn't so that it would be this big explosive video, even though I thought that this was a message that needed to be, I know how badly I needed to know this message and let this message sink in. And so I just thought like, there's so many other people that need this as well. And maybe they don't, maybe they haven't found it yet, or maybe it's not what my audience is used to from me, or whatever it is. But letting yourself do that stuff, like letting yourself have both. You don't always have to be super intentional about being like, oh, I should do a video like this because this is what people want and this is what people are looking for. Like letting yourself play with it. I mean, life is an experiment. So just let yourself experiment. That none of it actually, means anything if we're going to get really philosophical about it. So just let yourself try things, let yourself do things, let yourself be intentional. If you want to be building a business, you have to be somewhat intentional and strategic about it and be like, this is what people want, so I'm going to give that to them. But I'm also, again, for that sustainability, to be showing up and staying consistent, I need to also be doing things that light me up, that excite me, because I never want this to feel like a slog. I always want to feel like there's at least enough of it here that I'm doing that lights me up, that makes me excited. That's why we go into working for ourselves in the first place, right?
Yes.
So that we can do things that are meaningful to us.
Yes.
But also considering your audience and your people at the same time as well. So having a little bit of that marriage between the two, I think. What about you? What do you say?
I think the marriage is really important. I was actually going to say, I'm sure on that video that you said, didn't really catch on. Do you know how many views that video has?
8,000 or 9,000.
That's still 8,000 or 9,000 people who are consuming the content and hearing what lights you up and hearing the message that obviously is important for them. And that's the thing about YouTube that is so amazing, is that people are going to find you, whether it's one person who watches your video or 50,000. And people get so caught up in the views. But I'm like, if this video meant something, I created it and one person watched it, that's one person who's going to be impacted through it. And so the balance is interesting for me, because my big turning point with YouTube was when I created the strategy that's inside of this masterclass, bossyoutube.strategy.com, which is figuring out what your audience wants and delivering it to them in the right way. That's when I saw the most momentum. So I always really focus on like, what does my audience need from me right now? But I will say I've done, I don't even know how many videos on YouTube at this point, like on the topic of YouTube. I feel like I've covered a lot of things. So I made a video recently and I said, you know, it's my birthday and I'm going to be doing content now that I care about and I'm really interested in. And I, of course, care about giving you guys tips and tricks. So that's my Tuesday videos. Fridays, I do what I want. And I got a comment yesterday and I knew this would happen from some person or somewhere. And they said, I want to know about YouTube tips and tutorials. I don't care about you going to Italy and showing us your fancy life, because I did a vlog on Friday about my trip to Italy, which for me was like therapeutic and fun and a time capsule of that adventure and that time. And I said to him, I responded and I said, it might come as a surprise to you, but I'm a human who has a YouTube channel and also a life. And of course, I want to help with YouTube tutorials and tips and tricks, and that's what my Tuesday videos are for. On Fridays, I do what I want. My channel, my rules. If you don't want to be here, quite frankly, unsubscribe. Right? No skin off my back.
You don't have to be there.
So
that's the part that always gets me. You don't. Someone said to me, "You breathe too loud in your videos."
I'm like, why are you watching then?
I'm like, you don't actually have to stay. Another woman, oh my gosh, this is the funniest one. She sent me this message, this like Facebook message. She's like, no offense, but your voice is as annoying as the sound of like cats dying.
And that right there is someone who will be on the sidelines for the rest of their life.
I was like, hey. And I actually sent her a bunch of links to other people who teach personal development stuff. I'm like, here's some other people that you might find easier to listen to. Like, I don't understand. You don't actually have to watch.
Nope. No one's putting a gun to your head saying you have to watch this person. So I'm so grateful for the people that are here. And I'm also grateful for the freedom of YouTube, of the fact that I can make content that I want. I can also make content that's going to drive traffic and leads and customers and all of those things and get a big reach. But I'm also a human and like I deserve the chance to experiment. And I think that's the thing. But I will say this. The fastest way to gain momentum, and I'm sure you can relate to this and agree with this, and this is why we teach it this way in YouTube for Bosses and inside of the free training, the fastest way to gain momentum is to provide value and to figure out what your audience is looking for and to do the research. I am now at almost 300,000 subscribers. This is the first time I have ever really dabbled in content that isn't following that model because I'm experimenting. But I'm still doing the Tuesday videos that follow that model. And I will do those Tuesday videos forever, pretty much, because I know that that's really where the growth comes from. And that's where I'm able to help people with tactics and tools. The other videos I wouldn't recommend starting with because they're not going to get you any traction. You can actually see the numbers on my channel, and it's part of the reason I'm doing it. The video that I did on Friday about the Italy travel vlog has about 5,000 views. The video that I did on personal branding like a week ago or whatever the topic was, it was like 20,000 views and growing. So discoverable content, searchable content, content that you research, that's the content that's going to get the most views and the most eyeballs on it and the most traction for you as a brand. And that's what we teach inside of bossyoutube.strategy.com. And it works for all different kinds of niches and topics. And I mean, you're a therapist. Who would have thought that you would be able to grow your business to this place through YouTube? It's really amazing. So I wanted to just leave on that point about, you know, your experience over the last 2 years and YouTube for Bosses. And if anybody's kind of sitting here watching and thinking, I'm thinking about doing this, but I'm not really sure, because it is new to a lot of people. People are like, what's this program? I've never heard of it before. What would you say about YouTube for Bosses?
Just run, do it, right? Just, yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound like a cliche, like just do it. But if there is something, if you've got like a message in your heart, if you've got something that's been sort of just simmering inside, and sometimes it shows up as whispers, just sort of in the back of your mind. I wonder if I did this, or I wonder if I did that, or I wonder if I could do this. That one line. I wonder if I could do this. I think, and I want you to think, that you owe it to yourself to try. Mm-hmm. I mean, you actually have nothing to lose. If life is about having experiences and experimenting and doing things, like, why wouldn't you? And I'm always so just perplexed. And I know that I've done it too, so I can't be a hypocrite. But that whole idea of like, if you've got a little bit of a burning in your belly or a whisper in the back of your mind, why wouldn't you just indulge it? Why wouldn't you just let yourself put it out there? Like, what have you got to lose? And who knows, like you have no idea what you could gain from it. And even if you're just showing up, if you want to learn how to put content out there in a way that's going to make sense for people, and Sunny teaches all that in YouTube for Bosses, if you want a strategy on how to do that, and so that you can feel comfortable and confident in how you're showing up, regardless of how it lands on the outside, but just the growth, the personal growth that comes from that, from being able to respect yourself and listen to yourself in that way and say, this is something that I want to do that's important to me, just to show up and get this message out there and have this experience and try this thing, and just let yourself do it. Why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. Reinventing You just said, Julia is the tipping point for me to sign up for YouTube for Bosses. And she said, congrats on 100,000 subscribers. So I think that's so amazing. And I actually wanted to kind of throw it back here for a second before we tell people where they can go and find you if they haven't heard of you before. But a lot of people already have, hence the fact that you have this massive channel on YouTube. But I saw this post, you shared this post with me that you shared 2 years almost to the day. And I'm pulling it up on screen right now. And it talks about, if you had told me that within a few months, there would be thousands of men and women on YouTube brave enough to let me join and guide them on this journey of getting past the fear, the shame, and the self-doubt that tries to keep us down and hold us back, I would have said you were crazy and off your rocker. 5,000 subscribers and 300,000 views means that there are many real life eyes, ears, and hearts, courageous and willing. And that was when you had just kind of started to get going. And I remember you tagging me in this post, and I was like, wow, this woman is about to get seen by a lot of people. And I'm just so proud of all of your growth and success. And I think it's so awesome. I think the message you're putting out there is so important. So from 5,000 subscribers, that was 2 years ago, basically, to now, your channel being at over 114,000. And you can go subscribe to Julia's channel here, Julia Christina Counseling on YouTube. Check out her videos, and her videos being watched by millions of people. You can see some of her top videos here with 600,000, almost 700,000 views, 400,000 views. It's amazing the journey that you've been on. And the thing that I want to really drive home here is it's possible. And it doesn't matter what niche you're in. We worked with people in over 3,000 different niches. It is possible if you follow the right strategy and the right formula. So if you go to bossyoutubestrategy.com, you can sign up for the free training, register for the class there. And Julia, I just wanted to say thank you. Where can people go find you? Where do you want to send people to promote the heck out of yourself right now?
I really like Instagram. I feel like it's a little bit more personal. I show up on Instagram stories in a little more of a personal, unscripted way. So it's at Julia Counselor. Counselor is counselor with 2 L's because we're in Vancouver or in Canada. And then also on Facebook. You know what? Isn't this funny? I don't even know what my username is on Facebook. I think it's Julia Christina with a K, or Julia Christina Ma, or Julia Christina Counseling, or something like that on Facebook. That's so YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. But I've been really, really liking playing with Instagram lately and connecting with people on there.
Yeah.
As a second to YouTube, of course.
Of course. I always say that Instagram's kind of like the filler. And YouTube's like the hub
in between.
Yeah, and YouTube grows Instagram, and Instagram is great for reiterating what you're talking about on YouTube. And I love them all. I love Instagram and I love YouTube. But lots of great information on Julia's channel, so make sure you go check it out. So many kudos and congratulations. If you are here watching, whether you're here live or on the replay or listening on the podcast, be sure to share this episode out. I think there were so many good nuggets, especially in overcoming the mental hurdles to finding this kind of success and to growing to where you want to be. I will ask you one last thing before we wrap up. You said it's been 3 years since you started your business. Let's give people just a look under the hood of how much work it actually has been, so people can get grounded in the fact that this does not necessarily happen overnight.
Yeah. And that's why I say so much about making sure that you are connected with what you're doing loving what you're doing and like listening to what makes sense for you, as well as really looking at the market and like what people want, because you have to have that to sustain it. You cannot sprint a marathon. You have to be just like one step at a time and keeping yourself going, and you have to keep yourself fueled and filled up along the way. And so yeah, like it's not overnight success. What is it people say? Like it takes 10 years to have overnight success. And not everyone has like the hockey stick model where they like chug along and then all of a sudden it takes off. For most people, it's like this gradual progression. And so letting yourself recognize that, letting yourself celebrate the small successes and the wins along the way, because it's all process. Yes. And I think so much of us, we don't get it. Life is a process. There's only one end point. And at that point, you can't do it. There's no going back. And so recognizing that it's all process, and even talking about your course, Denny, about people that have been thinking about doing this course, and stop making it such a big deal. Like stop making it such a big deal. Like, should I or shouldn't I? If you have something inside that you want to get out there, just show up for yourself. Show up for yourself and do that. And don't make it such this big, huge deal. And yeah, and the other part, just sustaining yourself throughout that, is you just have to do something that you love, and you have to be filling yourself up. I'm always listening, reading books, listening to audiobooks. I love psychology. I love figuring out the way our brains work, the way our emotions work, the way our thoughts work, and just really helping people get a better handle on being human, because it's hard and it doesn't come with a manual. And so what is it that you love? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to sustain you. Don't talk about, people always tell me, why don't you teach other therapists how to build multiple six-figure private practices? And I'm like, I don't want to. No. And maybe I could make more money doing that. Maybe I could be more successful doing that, but I don't want to. That doesn't make my heart sing. And so figuring out that beautiful place between what makes your heart sing and being able to communicate that in a way that people want. And that's going to be the thing that because so then, like there is no destination. There is no place that you get to. There's just showing up and learning and growing and serving and expanding and enjoying yourself along the way. And also knowing that some days are hard as heck. Mm-hmm. But if you have that that connection to what you're doing, then there isn't an alternative. And I remember saying that to myself one time where I was like, this is so hard and I'm so tired and I just don't know if I can do this anymore. But then I was like, what's the alternative? Like there is no alternative for me. It's some days are going to be hard, and that's just part of it. And you just keep showing up, because I'm not going back to a windowless office with fluorescent lights working at like a health clinic with clients that I don't really want to be working with. Yeah. I'm not doing that. So the alternative is to just like pull up, put on your big girl pants and be like, all right, we're showing up today. And today's just going to be a harder day. And you're just going to show up and you're just going to do it, because sometimes you're going to have those days, and then you're going to have the great days after that. And then you're going to have another hard day, and then you're going to have great days. And it's going to go through ups and downs. And if we can just sort of acknowledge and accept that everything is impermanent, the hard days are impermanent and the amazing days are impermanent. And so we just allow ourselves to be present in the whole process.
I don't know if anybody else is clapping at home, but I'm clapping right now here, because that was so good, and I'm so glad that I just snuck in that last question. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for everything that you brought today. Thank you so much for being here and watching, you guys. I have been reading your comments throughout, and it means the world. This has been a full hour, jam-packed hour, and I just want to say thank you for sticking around and being here. There's a million and one other things that you could be doing, but I think in the last hour, you probably got something out of this that's just going to propel you even further and faster. So I hope to see you inside of the masterclass. I hope to see you inside of YouTube for Bosses real soon. And thank you so much, Julia. That was so, so good. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll talk to you really, really soon. Bye, guys.